Hello, and welcome to Cheers to Fears, where we take horror films and turn them into drinking games. We're your two hosts. I'm Alex.
And I'm Tucker. Today we will be making a drinking game for Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, directed by Joe Chappelle and written by Daniel Farrens.
Halloween 6 stars Jamie for about 15 minutes, and it's not even Danielle Harris. Yep, we're off to a great start. It does, however, star Paul Rudd as Tommy Doyle, the child that Laurie Strode babysits in the first movie.
Before Jamie dies, she gives birth to a child that Tommy finds and obviously Michael Myers is after. All Tommy knows is that this child is Jamie's and that he must protect it at all costs because as a relative of Michael Myers, he is destined to murder the child.
Just a fair warning, there are spoilers ahead, so if you have not yet watched the movie, feel free to pause the video and watch the movie now, and consider using our drinking rules that will be posted on screen. If spoilers are not an issue, or if you have already seen the movie, then let's continue.
The first rule we have for each drinking game is death. If you see somebody die, you take a sip. The total number of deaths we saw for this movie was 13.
Next, of course, is screaming, crying, and yelling, as if you hear any of those, you take a sip along with it. The total we counted for Halloween 6 was a staggering 31 sips.
Damn you!
We will now continue for the rules we have for every Halloween movie. Starting with if you see the word Halloween or hear somebody say it, take a sip, my friend. In total, this rule was applied 17 times in the movie.
Shit, Beth, why do we have to be the ones to organize this friggin' fair? I mean, it's only Halloween.
Generally, we would have if you see a pumpkin, you drink in the 4th spot on our Halloween drinking games. But we're not doing this rule this time around, as we will come back to why later on in the video. For now, we moved all the Halloween rules up a spot, which means if somebody is committing a slasher sin on screen, you take a sip. This rule is relatively low for most drinking games, as we only count them occurring 4 times in this film.
Following up slasher sins is when you hear somebody say Michael or Myers in the film, you take a sip.
Come on, you don't really believe that Michael Myers is actually alive.
Michael's work isn't done in Haddonfield.
For Halloween 6, the count was quite high this time around, as we had to take 31 sips from our beverage.
The next rule is that you must always take a sip when you see Michael Myers appear on screen. This rule is also pretty effective if you were playing our drinking game, as you would end up taking 23 sips if so.
Rule number 7 this time around is that if you hear the iconic Halloween theme, take a sip. The more you hear it, the more you will get used to this rule. But in saying that, you won't get very used to this one, considering we only took 4 sips when we counted the rules for this drinking game.
Now, we will move on to our exclusive rules for Halloween 6, which there are 3 of this time around. First up is if you see the symbol of thorn, you take a sip. In comparison to Halloween 5, we saw this symbol quite a bit more, which obviously means more drinks. In total, we drank 15 times for this rule.
Next to last, if you see the mysterious man in black, you must take a sip. In conclusion, we saw the gentleman on 5 separate occasions.
And finally, is one additional rule: if you see any jump cuts that can only be credited to bad editing, take a sip. The movie felt that it was necessary to add these in to the movie 9 times.
And that is all the rules for Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. The total number of drinks for this movie by our count comes to 152 sips, which is the equivalent of drinking slightly over 5 standard 12-ounce cans. That number, of course, is based off of a 30 sip per can scale, and honestly, if we decided to add pumpkins into the rules, it would have been a lot worse.
So yeah, going off of 152 drinks. On top of that, for pumpkins, there was 81 that we counted in the movie, which is basically just impossible to do.
Yeah, it wasn't very fun to try and drink to the pumpkins. Yeah. 81 is a lot. And on top of that, there was other couple rules that were kind of high, which screams, cries, and yells.
Give me a doctor now!
And Michael Myers being said.
Michael Myers.
Michael Myers?
There's something wrong.
Was both at 31, which is pretty high.
Yeah, so I guess on to what we'll be talking about, which is that the movie's garbage.
The movie is not great, just like the last 2 that we reviewed. Much of that was thanks to the studio producers and director all arguing, to the point that the cast said it was almost comical.
Yeah.
So all of that obviously resulted in a poor film.
Mm-hmm. In saying that, there was a producer's cut which did clean some things up a little bit more, such as explaining the Cult of Thorn. However, we didn't want to watch that version because of one thing specifically. It's that the theatrical release was on Amazon Prime, which just made it easier, to be honest.
Yeah, it was more readily available to us.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's probably going to be more available for you guys as well, so...
Yeah, exactly. It makes sense to stick to what's easily available. So one of the elements that were taken out of the theatrical release is Michael Myers was supposed to be the father to the baby that Jamie gave birth to. which is pretty messed up if you think about it. So Laurie is Michael Myers' sister. Jamie is the daughter to Laurie, and the kid that Michael Myers is supposedly the father to is Jamie's kid. So what does that make Michael Myers?
I guess that makes him a father and a great uncle.
Yeah, I don't know. It's either way, it's messed up.
Just as this whole franchise is, it's just a big old mess. If it's any film or any explanation that represents this series, this is one of them for sure.
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess one other thing that was not in the theatrical release is Danny was supposed to be the new Michael Myers, which would explain him hearing voices.
Yeah.
But that was completely just pushed under the rug in the first little bit of the movie. He hears voices and then they're just gone.
Yeah. And then another part that they removed was Jamie was alive longer. She didn't die horrifically like she did in the theatrical version. Mm-hmm. In this producer's cut, I guess, is she died by gunshot from the Man in Black.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty major change that was made as well.
Mm-hmm. We gave her a little bit more of a backstory. Just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Also, the ending was completely redone pretty much.
Yeah.
The climax was pretty much completely overhauled. It was a different ending for sure, we'll say that much. It's almost the same result, except a few more things were explained, really.
Yeah, pretty much. And overall, the movie was just less gory as well.
Mm-hmm. Which, take it, leave it. If some people want more gore in the movie, honestly, I'd still probably say to watch the producer's cut. But that means you have to watch 15 more minutes of a shitty movie.
Yeah.
So they killed Jamie in this movie, who should have been portrayed by Danielle Harris. Mm-hmm. But I guess the studios didn't want to pay the original actors so much money, so they got somebody else. Mm-hmm. I think people were actually mad at the new actress that it wasn't Danielle Harris, but that's just kind of, I don't know. If they don't want the same actress, you don't have to be moved to a different one, but whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole thing, honestly, they should have just paid her the extra money and got Danielle Harris on, because at this point it's just so silly.
Yeah, I agree. So one thing I kind of found funny and interesting is they initially asked Peter Jackson to direct this movie.
Yeah.
They probably saw his work on Dead Alive and figured, oh, he would be great for this.
Yeah.
But he probably just looked at the script and was like, yeah, no, I'm definitely not doing that. Fuck this garbage.
Yeah, and especially like how much they argued like with the director, producer,
Yeah.
and company, studios. It's honestly best that he didn't do it because he just would have been in that clusterfuck.
Yeah, and who knows where his career would have went after that.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been that, oh, he did this shitty job on Halloween 6. Let's not get Peter Jackson for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, exactly.
He could have fucked his career up. So, I mean, we're thankful that he didn't do it, I guess.
Yeah.
So something else about the movie is just the set design even looked so off-putting.
Yeah.
So, for example, there's candles everywhere in the movie.
Yeah.
And sure, it's to create mood or atmosphere or whatever, but it's to the point where it's just absurd. Mm-hmm. Like, why do you need fucking 60 candles in a room?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a film that takes place in like the 90s, so it's definitely not necessary.
Yeah.
Especially when they all leave to go to the festival or whatever, the Halloween activities, and come back, the candles are all fucking lit.
Yeah,
so that's a fire hazard, unless they all lit it off screen, which probably would have took about like 4 minutes to do.
Not only that, but the plot makes Michael Myers less terrifying.
Yes.
They explain it so much that we as an audience can now kind of justify the actions of an unempathetic psychopath, whereas before we weren't really able to justify it. He was kind of just a madman, but now they kind of explained it so much that we can almost, I don't know, we get why he's doing it in a way.
Yeah.
Basically, the fear of the unknown is a much more terrifying concept.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I guess elephant in the room. Paul Rudd is in this movie, but he's not great.
No.
So, what I mean by this is it could be just direction, acting, Paul Rudd being so early on into his career, but something felt super off about him being in the film. Again, it could just be inexperience.
Yeah. Or it could be our perception on Paul Rudd in modern times.
That's true too.
Because he's not really a horror actor, so maybe us going in with that image of him makes it seem like, you know, he doesn't belong in this movie.
Yeah, definitely.
But he also he didn't carry the movie or anything. He wasn't doing that much work for it, really.
Mm-hmm. And this also is the last movie that we see Loomis. In this timeline anyways.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, they decide to keep killing off the characters that we have grown to love. Like, we don't see Laurie, we don't see Michael in the third one. We don't see Loomis. Like, what is going on?
I mean, to be fair, the actor did die after the movie. I guess technically during when they were doing reshoots, he died.
Yeah.
But yeah, he'll be missed for sure.
Yeah, so it makes sense that he was killed off, but at the same time, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, they tried to kill off Loomis so many times before, like in Halloween 2. I think in Halloween 4 or 5, I don't know. Halloween 6, they killed him off. I don't know. They're just trying to kill off so many characters to stop the franchise.
It seems like it.
Yeah. So, what's your overall thoughts on the film?
I mean, it's pretty obvious that we don't like this film.
Mm-hmm.
For me, in my opinion, this one is slightly better than 5 for the simple fact that the plot isn't a jumbled mess. They kind of at least have a straightforward plot that doesn't go and branch out in a million different places, but it kind of just feels like it was slapped together and really rushed, and that's probably due to the production companies and directors clashing the whole time. But yeah, overall, I would say just skip it.
Yeah. It's, I guess, a weird stage of they were trying to find holes to fill in the void of the 5th movie with the whole Cult of the Thorn scenario.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just so weird and out of place, and they're just trying to find some way to tie it all together.
Yeah, they're trying to explain the supernatural aspects that Michael Myers developed in 4, 5, and now 6 because he keeps coming back to life, so they have to explain why that's possible.
Yeah.
Which they shouldn't have even bothered. It was kind of just, accepted that, okay, Michael Myers is returning. We know he's kind of immortal, even though we don't know why. They shouldn't have tried to explain it.
And finally, we come to the awards ceremony, where we award one not-so-lucky nominee, the Darwin Award. This award goes out to a character who made a stupid decision that resulted in them getting killed, somebody else getting killed, or simply resulting in something bad happening that could have been easily avoided. This award can also be given to a character that is just plain dumb. Here are the nominees.
Today's first nominee is the nurse that let Jamie escape. It was a good deed at heart to help Jamie escape, but odds are you probably could have taken her to a hospital instead of a cult sanctuary, and then betray the cult, which was probably the reason she ended up dead.
Next is Tommy Doyle for having a camera pointed directly at the Myers house. Yes, it was because the house was belonging to Michael Myers previously, but that doesn't excuse the fact that it is pointing right at a girl's window. Not to mention, we did not see Tommy taking great care of the child since it was abducted so easily.
Next up is John Strode for voluntarily moving into the Myers house and being a prick throughout the movie. We are not upset that he died at all, as moving into the Myers house alone is enough to be worthy of a nomination, since Michael Myers has been known to wander back home from time to time.
And finally is Deborah Strode for essentially trapping herself in her own backyard and getting killed by bed sheets.
And the winner is Deborah, for not knowing the design of her own house that she has probably lived in for years, and somehow getting bested by bed sheets. I do not know why she didn't try to climb a fence or anything else like that.
And with all that being said, we hope you enjoyed our look into Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. If you end up playing the game alongside the movie, or if you have any feedback or suggestions, let us know in the comments below. Also let us know in the comments if this was the worst Halloween movie as most people say. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next episode where we are going to be making a drinking game for Halloween H2O.
Also feel free to find us on Facebook to stay up to date with us and get reminders on when we post new videos. If you want to check out our most recent video on Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, click on the box on the top right. Or if you want to see a playlist of all the drinking games and movies we review, click on the box below it. Thanks for tuning in, and this is us saying, cheers to fears.